This week's episode is sponsored by Middleman Records, and we've got one more release to bring you in 2024. That's right, coming December 6th is the debut release from Kill Code, a new emotive hardcore band featuring members of They Hung Us From Power Lines and Coma Regalia. Tune in to middlemanrecords.bandcamp.com on December 6th for all your tape and download needs. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go there to read zines, get music sneak peeks, including a sneak peek of Kill Code, which I just mentioned, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Funniest Joke in Hell by Dead Sea Lords, featuring my new pal, Jason Teisinger on bass. The song comes off of their self-titled debut album, which you can order from Jason's label, Belladonna Records, at belladonna-records.com.
The first things I got into was when I was in high school, and it wasn't really tapes. It was more older friends that we all looked up to, that we skateboarded with, that basically filtered music down to us, because they, we were 2 or 3 years younger than them. They'd be like, "Oh, what are you guys listening to?" And it would just be the stuff that most folks would associate with just being, normal punk rock, Dead Kennedys, Descendants, and then a lot of metal stuff like Death Angel, Sepultura, and stuff like that. And I really got into industrial music before I moved to Gainesville. So it was mostly metal, some punk, and then like Netzareb and Ministry and Revolting Cocks and just kind of wax tracks type stuff. And I lived in rural Florida, so it was always sort of hard to track that stuff down. So we had to go to, like record stores in Tampa and Orlando to sort of get stuff. And then that's where we started getting exposed to, and these are my friends that I skateboarded with and went to high school with, Fugazi, and we were just kids, and the record store guys like, "You like Fugazi? Here's everything else from Discord I think you'd like too." And then of course we would just buy it and go crazy because it was all super new, and we really got into it. So that was before I moved to Gainesville. So when I moved to Gainesville to go to college, a couple of my friends had moved up here a little bit earlier than me, a semester earlier, and they sort of got into the scene and got to know people a little bit quicker. When I moved up here, I didn't really know anybody. And it was completely different, and it was sort of getting integrated into I wouldn't call it cliquey. It's just sort of like I didn't know anyone, and everybody was listening to stuff that I had no idea what it was. And it was my friend Mike Taylor, who I ended up being in a band with, in a band called Palatka with. He came from the same town as me, from Winter Haven, Polk County, Florida. People always call it Polk County. It was super rural, and it's kind of, at the time anyway. Mm-hmm. And he, had a couple new friends that he'd met that were into basically the stuff that I know that you're into and that I ended up being into. My friend Kurt, who ended up singing for Palatka, he made a mixtape of a bunch of different stuff, and it was a lot of stuff from Gravity Records and Old Glory Records, and I don't think Great American Sacrilege had been out around that long. Some stuff from that, it was just stuff that kind of blew my mind. So it was just like, it was a mixtape with Second Story Window, Shopmaker, Honeywell, Antioch Arrow, Reach Out, this band from I think they're from San Francisco, maybe. Just stuff that was totally different than what I'd been listening to. I mean, it was in the realm, but it was like, okay, might as well just be, I'm not sure what your experience was when you first started listening to some of the really fast stuff, but the first couple listens, it was unlistenable. I had no idea what was going on. And then, I was really liked it because I was always really sort of into I don't really know what you'd call it, but just interested in sort of pushing the boundaries with different stuff. Whether it was, if people would show me crazy jazz, and I really got into that also, just because it was just, wild and interesting. And, and then with the hardcore stuff, there was also kind of messages behind most of it that I had already been thinking about and agreed with, and sort of made the music a little more important for me. And that's kind of was my entry. He made a mixtape, Kurt did, that had kind of a lot of the classic sort of, I don't know how you define 90s.
Yeah.
90s punk.
Yeah.
90s hardcore.
Yeah, I think Reach Out is the only one
90s hardcore
that you said that I wasn't like
and
immediately.
I got kind of just fell in love with all of it. And it was also, when you start finding records and going to record stores that actually carry that stuff or ordering it online, everything was so different. The packaging was always so different, and it might as well have been from a different planet as far as the way I was ingesting music at the time. Where at that point it was mostly CDs. Most folks didn't buy cassettes anymore, and it just seemed more personal when you got it, I guess. And
the CD
you
or
kind of
a
cherish
cassette?
that record way more than you cherish the CD. And at that time, you could find stuff for really cheap, right? So a new record would be somewhere between $7 and $10, or maybe $13 for an expensive one. And a used record you could find for $3 to $5. So even with a pretty, on a college student's budget, you could buy several records a month.
Yeah, you were talking about how you used to be able to just like try stuff by picking up like a 7-inch or an LP or whatever. And it's funny how that's not really the case anymore. Like the days of like a 7-inch being, it's kind of like how comic books used to be just like, oh, this is like 12 cents or a quarter, and you could grab one and enjoy it and then stick it in your bike spokes because it just didn't matter, right? Like you could get that 7-inch,
right.
and it's just like you would take chances because first of all, you didn't have any other way to like hear something that you saw the cover and it was like in the general vibe of like the other bands that you listen to, and you're like, this is probably an emotive hardcore record, and you grabbed it, and like it's not that anymore, obviously, like especially with 7 inches in particular, like they cost nearly $10 to make now, and it's wild. It's I don't know, I pride myself on kind of not being one of those like old people like yelling at the clouds, as far as like music and stuff. But there's certain things where it's hard to not sound like that. And 7-inch records are kind of one of them.
Yeah, I got frustrated just because of the cost, and sort of along the lines of what you're saying. It gets to the point where it's not really worth it. And it's disappointing because it was such a special, fun format. And it was like it was an intimate format, right? Because you're not really, you're sitting down by yourself. It didn't really take that big of a time commitment to listen to a 7-inch. And a lot of these bands that we're talking about, kind of, a lot of them only put out 7 inches, right? So that's the only thing you had of their output. And now you go, if you go to a show even, it's not like I get mad at the band or feel, but they're selling a 7-inch for $10 to $15, and I can't blame them. It probably costs that much or more to make, and it's just hard for me to, and whatever calculations that have changed in my mind, it's hard for me to sort of, I have to be way more selective if I buy a 7-inch. It's got to be a band either I'm intimately connected with, with friends or something, or a band that I can't live without owning that 7-inch. And there's a good chance I probably will listen to that 7-inch twice the entire time I own it, but for whatever reason I still have to own it.
Yeah.
But I think that's getting less and less. Like I haven't bought a 7-inch probably in a year.
Yeah, my other thing with that, other than just like the the like cost or everything like that, is that I sort of have I'm sort of on a like my 7 inches take up this many like racks in my shelf, and like
Yeah.
my 12 inches take up this many racks in my shelf, and like there's not a lot more there that I can, sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
I might get a couple, like I'll get some stuff that I enjoy, like in label trades and stuff. And I'm like, ooh, I want to keep one of these. And then I'm like, if I want to keep one of these, I almost have to get rid of something, like I don't know where I'm going to put it. But yeah, I mean,
I totally understand. I totally understand.
after you're even just sort of, even if you're only sort of a casual collector, like after playing in bands for 20 something years, then yeah, you're gonna amass some things, for sure. But it kind of sounds like you were talking about people making you these tapes and stuff, like people that you would later be in bands with, and it almost sort of sounds like almost like people being like, hey, like you're into this stuff, like we should start a band that sounds like this, and then they show you this stuff. Was there a little bit of that going on, or was that not even part of the conversation at that point?
Initially, it actually wasn't, and then later on, I know that Kurt wanted to be in a band. The joke was, and I love Kurt, we still really good friends. It was always sort of like he just wanted to go. He wanted to be in a band so he could go on tour, so he could go easily see all the bands he wanted to go see all over the place. And but I think he made a mixtape. He knew what I would like probably initially, because I know that when we first started the band I was in with him, with Palatka, he was wanting to do something more along the lines of like Crossed Out or Infest or something like that. And just we all came out of different opinions, but yeah, it may have been a little bit of that. I never could tell with him about exactly what his motivations were, other than just friendship. I mean, I won't discount that. He just thought it was someone would be interested. He knew that I liked certain music.
For sure. Yeah, it just reminds me of like a lot of instances in my own life where it was like you'd meet somebody and they're like, oh, you play guitar? Like, oh, I play bass, and then it's like you're like, we should play sometime, like we should see if something works out. And then the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, these are the bands, like you're getting like a tape or a burned CD, like later in the trajectory, it'd be like a burned CD with like, yeah, these are the bands I like. I really want to do something like this, and you hear like so much cool stuff that way. And yeah, I don't know, like
Well, 100% that happened later on.
yeah,
And I don't know if it was the same for you. There was times where I actually heard what they wanted to sound like, and I was just like, oh, I don't think it's going to be. We're not going to work out. I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
don't want to be in your oi band. I don't want to be.
yeah. I don't know. I almost said that I never got asked to be in a band like that, but I guess I kind of did. I never really was in a band like that. I also I did manage to escape the South Florida. Like I never was in a ska band, which is wild. But yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh my God. I can't believe that.
But yeah. One thing, it's like so being sort of like just on the outside, like looking in, and you're talking about like some of the first bands that you were introduced to and stuff outside of like your introductory sort of time period of like, just like general punk and thrash and stuff like that. You mentioned a lot of bands that I I connect the guitar work with like just I don't know how to describe it, but there's like a formlessness to it that I always latched onto, and I spent so many hours when I was first learning guitar just annoying the hell out of my poor mother because I was just not even playing chords. I was just holding the guitar, and as soon as I heard a cool noise that I never heard in a song, I was like, how did I do that? And like, bands like Fugazi, like they have a bit of that, but you mentioned like Honeywell and a lot of those bands from back then, and I am getting somewhere with this. Palatka really has that to me. Like Palatka has this formlessness in the guitar work that I'm like, this is people that like know how to write songs, but they also like it's not just like we either have to be picking out these notes or we have to be playing these bar chords. Like there's an experimental quality to it. There's a playfulness to it that I like really resonated with. And I don't know, I connect that later to bands like 8 Hour Credo and Daddy's Hands and stuff like that. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but like
I've heard of Daddy's Hands.
Yeah, like is that like a part of your playing that you feel like that you're aware of or you're intentional, or was that like other people in the band that were like, oh no, I'm sort of like the straight-laced player and the other player is like this? Or
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the drummer and before there's the guitar player Ryan Murphy ended up being the band. We were a 4-piece: Kurt singing and Mike Taylor playing guitar, and then Mark Rodriguez playing drums and me playing bass. And after our first handful of like songs that we were just like everybody's first songs, it was first songs in the first band, they were generally awful. And Mark, it's kind of like I don't know if you agree with this, but when you start gelling and stuff starts coming together, you get a sort of a meeting of minds, whether it's you even know it's happening or not, and you anticipate what the other person's doing, and you kind of push each other in directions. And I knew Mark was trying to do stuff that was just really strange timings, where it was just difficult. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, at least with me, started pushing me to get to some of the stuff that you're describing, which is almost like texture rather than
that's a good way to put it.
It's like sound textures rather than specific pieces of songs. And I think that we all just kind of fit in with that. I know that Mike liked to pick more, and then when Ryan got in the band, whether or not that made any sense, because I definitely don't, this was never intentional, but he kind of a lot of times would do the rhythm kind of stuff, I guess, if you were going to think of something as a classically structured band. Mm-hmm. Where him and I would be a little bit more in sync, but then he would create the bigger texture, and then Mike would play the kind of more picking guitar individual note type stuff. And but it's exactly what you said. It definitely was intentional towards the end, and it also came from us just having so many different ideas of what we wanted to sound like, and hopefully it came out to be something a little bit different than what everybody else was doing. Because I know that each individual person was probably trying to sound like a couple specific bands, and they were not the same bands. So, and we were pretty egalitarian about who made decisions, and we tried to let everybody write songs and come up with parts, and it just kind of came together like that. But I think that because a lot of folks ask about how it's like poppy stuff in there or melodies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that came from just, I know Kurt wanted to sound like Crossed Out. I don't know exactly what Mike wanted to sound like, but it was some very different stuff getting mixed in there. So it kind of got put in a blender and then came out the way it did.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking before about like, you sort of you started getting into industrial stuff and stuff too, then I was like, yeah, this all kind of tracks for how like a band, ends up with these sort of parts that, like you described it as like textural, like this all sort of tracks where you're coming at it from all these different angles or whatever. And then like you end up like, it's more than a Reese's cup, because a Reese's cup is just 2 flavors, but it's like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's bordering on like 5 flavors, but it's I just find that kind of stuff fascinating. One of my friends wanted me to ask if there was like an instance of, in any project that you've been in or whatever, where an influence outside of like the style for the band that you're writing with became like an influence in a song, like like for some reason, some Palatka song, you had like this core idea that came from Cyndi Lauper or whatever. Like, was there ever an instance where you had like, hey, this doesn't make sense, but like, I heard this one thing and it gave me this idea, and like, we're gonna like push this our own way and see what happens?
Well, beyond the typical attempts at trying to rip off bands that sort of sound similar to us, that came before us, and then failing, and then creating something new. Mm-hmm. I can't speak for everyone, and I don't remember exactly. This is gonna be kind of bad. I know that we were, we played with a band back then they're from Gainesville. They're originally from Vero, called Discount. Mm-hmm. And they were friends of ours, and we would play shows, and we did a show where we covered one of their songs and they covered one of ours. And I know that we all at some point liked that type of music also. Like I never was. I like everything. I mean, within reason. I get really excited about certain things, and I love shoegazy stuff and pop and things like that. Tried to be in those kind of bands and failed because they got to be a way better musician than I am. And there's way too many people out there doing it way better than me. So I kind of just was like, all right, this is fun, but it's not really. I'd rather be in something that I have a better grasp of. Mm-hmm. I know Mike did, and I know there was always kind of, because a lot of the guitar parts he would do were reminiscent of just stuff that he would have been listening to, like that week or something. And I don't want to. This could be completely wrong, but it'd be like something completely out there, like Creedence Clearwater Revival or something. and there would be a riff from that that we could incorporate in one of the songs, or somehow get stuck in there, or, and it was always funny. But after we played it and finally got the song done, it was almost unrecognizable, but those were there. So I probably need to ask him, because I don't remember what the bass parts doing. I always try to do like little Iron Maiden stuff with the triple bass, sort of, where he would, the guy, I forgot the bass player's name, unfortunately, but he would do like a triple finger pick, like a rolling bass. And I would try to do that with pick, which is always a little different, but and failed usually, because then, like you were in those bands, as you play those songs over and over again, they get faster and faster.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't play that fast. So
yeah, it's tricky. I don't know. I have one instance of where I've got more than one, but there was one song that I was like, that I wrote, and I actually was like, I'm gonna take "Kissed by a Rose" from Seal, and I'm gonna turn it into a screamo song. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, no one's ever figured that one out. People might have. I had another one where it was "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting," and I've told a couple people about that. But I don't think anyone's figured that one out on their own either. But after I've told people,
which band was this? Was this Coma Regalia?
The "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting," yeah, that one's Coma Regalia. And like, I was like, it was like after I told somebody, and then they listened and they were like, "Oh my God." They're like, that's totally it. Like how, like, but yeah, I don't think I don't know.
I like all the stuff you've said so far. I mean, I had the first Seal album on cassette when I was like in junior high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is just a melody that you can't get out of your head sometimes. And I was like, what if I took it and like sort of went this way, and like, if you base a guitar part off of a vocal part, and you're sort of, you're changing the pitch or whatever, but you're following the same line. It's like, if I told somebody it's this song, they'd be like, oh my God, yeah. But like, I don't know. I think it's fun, and I actually wrote this one song called "A Thief Who Craves Capture," based on this idea that, like, there's a just like a little trickster fox in every artist, that when you wear your influences on your sleeve, you're just kind of hoping in a way that someone's like, oh, was that, like, you're really into that, right? And you're like, yeah, you got me, I don't know. It's fun. But
I agree. I've always anticipated doing it. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Be as clever as I can as far as slipping in recognizable parts.
Yeah. I don't know. It's our participation in music sort of predates sampling to a degree, and sampling in songs is like huge now and stuff, and that's like a whole other thing. So that was like our, like, I mean, how do you like learn? A lot of people, that's how they like learn music anyway, is you just like literally learn by like putting on a Ramones tape and like, figuring out how they're playing what they're playing. So like, eventually you're gonna accidentally write a song that sounds like one of your favorite songs, but not as good. You know what I mean? Usually you'll scrap it, but sometimes maybe you're not at that point yet. Maybe it's one of your first bands, and you're just like, oh, it's different enough. And it wasn't that different, but like,
yep.
Yeah, we've probably.
No, I've got. Usually when we make up songs, especially back then, it was always everybody would realize who wrote the song and what they were probably ripping off, or intentionally or not unintentionally. Then it would be like, okay, there would be a reference to that band or that person in the the joke, the working title of the song.
Yeah.
So whoever wrote the lyrics came up with the real title.
Yeah.
Like the band I'm in now, Dead Sea Lords. We have a song that was originally called Glenn Danzig's Ghost, because it sounded like a unintentionally initially was definitely a Misfits guitar and bass line.
I like
changed, but
I like it when like a band, they'll have that pet name for the song, and then they'll like name the song something like cool or whatever for the album, and then you go to see the band, and it's like on the set list, it's like, it's like
working title.
Yeah, it'll say London Dungeon ripoff, or whatever, like right on the set list, and then you're like, oh shit, like that is pretty much London Dungeon, or whatever. I'm not saying that's the song that you're referring to, but yeah,
that's fine. I'll let you keep guessing. I'll be honest with you. If you're listening to it enough, first of all, I'd be surprised if you listened to that record that much.
The Dead Sea Lords.
Yeah.
I've listened to it a few times in the last few days. Yeah, I was trying to. There's something about it that I'm like, oh, this really reminds me of this, and I can't put my finger on it. And the problem is it's kind of a recency bias, and not necessarily like it's just that last Planes Mistaken for Stars album had just come out. And so I'm just like really hearing Planes Mistaken for Stars. Not necessarily that album either, just like bits from their different discography. And I'm like, this reminds me of Planes Mistaken for Stars. And that's just like because that album. But I'm like, there's something that I feel like there was something that I was listening to 15 years ago. And I mean, Planes Mistaken for Stars is that old, so there's that too. But like, I'm like, I feel like there was something I was listening 15 years ago that is a lot closer to what this band sounds like, and I just can't figure it out. But I know that, the people in Dead Sea Lords, like, y'all have a rich pedigree of like, former bands and stuff. So like, I'm blanking on all of them right now, but like, there were some members of like Radon, right?
Yeah. So Shane, the drummer, has been the drummer for Radon for probably 15 years. I don't know when the original drummer Bill stopped playing. I think it was like early 2000s, to be honest. I don't know exactly. And Shane's been sort of the fill-in drummer that kept that, as the band stayed alive for some reason. It was still really popular and fun to watch. They just weren't really putting anything out. And all those folks were my friends, but yeah, he's been the drummer for them for a long time. And before that, he was in a band called Panther UK United 13.
Oh yeah.
Which was like a no idea band. And the guitar player, Brian, one of the guitar players, was also in that with Shane, in Panthro. And they've been in a bunch of bands since then. And I'd have to go to Discogs to actually remember all the bands, because a lot of them, put out a 7-inch or something, or a tape, and then stopped existing.
Yeah.
And it's Gainesville. And you did you live in Gainesville at some point?
I did for a little bit.
Okay, because then the scene. You like, there's just a lot of like crossover of people.
Oh yeah.
The bands mix a lot, so it's just everybody, and it's kind of. So they were in a ton of different bands, and and I way more than me, to be honest. Yeah, and the other guitar player, he was just a friend of mine from work that I knew listened to the same kind of stuff, and I'd heard him play guitar, and he was better than most guitar players I knew. He'd never been in a band before, but I was like, man, would you be willing to be in a band are you interested in playing this kind of stuff? And he was, so that's good. And yeah, Danny. And then Eric, the singer, was in he was in a band called Baby Dracula for a while, and then there's a band called he's in a band called damn, I'm blanking on it. Ex Boogeyman.
Okay.
Which is just another, they play out a few times a year.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been around for a long time too. But this is his first time singing, so it's been interesting for him. But no, man, yeah, it's I would say that it's a pretty good example of the bands that you've heard of stuck in a blender and kind of what came out. I mean, I don't know if there's that much Palatka in that, but
yeah, I don't. I was, I was like, not drawing like a through line as far as like this sounds like Palatka, but when we were talking before about like the textures and just like sort of like the like I mean I didn't describe it this way before, but like there's more thought to it than obviously just like we're going to play fast, then we're going to play slower, then we're going to play this weird part. You know what I mean? But that's kind of there in the new stuff as well, on the Dead Sea Lords as well. Like it's not necessarily like the breakneck speeds, but the other stuff. Like it's a very like and especially as far as like the entire LP goes, it's a very like carefully planned listen from start to finish, in my opinion, which especially with a cover in there is like surprisingly how well that happens. Like it's very cohesive.
I appreciate it. We weren't going to do the cover, and then without getting into politics too much, the way stuff's starting to look, we were like, well, we might as well keep putting that. We've been playing it, but it was just like, and I know not everyone in the band thought of it like this, but I did. It was appropriate for the current situation.
Yeah.
And it's always been one of my favorite songs. And it just for lyrics and sort of the weird tempos and things like that. And it's one of the kind of all the Minutemen songs, it's probably one of my favorite 10.
Yeah.
I really love Minutemen.
I do too. I don't think I would ever cover a Minutemen song. I just don't think I my band covered a Fire Hose song a couple years ago, and I was like,
they're hard.
It was real hard. It was really hard.
I don't want to play anymore.
And yeah. It's like it feels wrong to like, this is all like clean guitars and stuff. And it feels wrong to like change that in a way, right? But then like you can't just play it like how they play it. Like it's
right.
It does not work. Like I don't know how. I tried. I was like, oh, just record this clean guitar on there and it'll, and I'm like, I can not sing as well as, as this person, but like I can get through that. Like that's fine. And it's hard. It's real hard. It's just deceptively hard.
The clean guitar, Boone, like he did a lot of, the timings are just different. Like they're always a little off, and it's on purpose, obviously. And the interplay with the bass and the guitar, it seems real simple until you try to do it, and you're like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah. And you need the tones to match in a way that is like takes like some kind of like degree in like tone school to like I don't know how to explain. You just need the tones to match in a way that you can tell this is the bass and that's the guitar. You can tell that 100%, but they also meld together to make this third instrument that you're not even sure you're hearing, because like when you try to just like oh, I'm doing this like this, and then there's the bass, and it's like it sounds wrong. It sounds like flat, and it doesn't sound as full and like just
I
warm,
agree with
and
you 100%.
it's so hard.
I can tell you for sure. I tried, not on that song, because I didn't want to do it on that song. It was hard enough because when we actually recorded, we play that song fast anyway compared to the original.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Shane played it when we recorded, he played it like even faster. And so it was just hard. It was hard to play, you know. And but I've tried to get his guitar tone. I think he played a P bass. He may have played like a jazz, with like one of the jazz specials. But like I think it's a lot of it. I don't know how there's a lot of that stuff back then. One, I'm not a guitar techie person, so I don't want to spend hours and hours trying to research exactly what pedal I should get to do, specific stuff. And almost every time I figure out what I need, if I wanted to do something a little bit different on something, the pedal I want, at least as far as I know, I'll get that sound, is always some ridiculously priced thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to spend $300 on a pedal right now for a bass, like one pedal.
Yeah.
And people may listen to this and just laugh at that because we played with a band who I loved. I thought they were really good a few shows ago, called Psychic Death, which is, again, one of those bands. If you look up the name, there's like probably 3 or 4 active bands called Psychic Death.
Sure.
But they're like they're like a post-hardcore, band with a lot of effects on vocals and the guitars and stuff. And the bass player sounded great. He sounded really, really good. And, he was playing through a very similar bass head to me. As like he was playing through an Ampeg. I think it was a 300 watt. I don't think it was a 300 classic, but it was something similar to what I play through. But he had like, because the reason I noticed is because he actually forgot his pedal satchel, and they're from Atlanta, and they were driving off, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I know whose this is. It was probably like $2,000, $3,000 worth of pedals in this little satchel. I'm like, holy shit. So we made sure we got them on the phone, and they definitely came back to pick it up.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things. I end up being impatient. I don't have, this probably with, if you have, kids, I just don't have a whole lot of time to sit and just go to Guitar Center or someplace where I can, that I probably wouldn't buy it through them, but I definitely get an ability to play through some of the pedals, try them out, and just sit there for an entire day on end, like trying to get this exact sound I want.
No, I just have a couple of friends that will routinely like pop on Instagram or something, and they'll have like mid-range price pedals, and they'll be like, this is working out pretty well, and they'll play it, and I'll be like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool, and then I'll like maybe like be like, oh yeah, this pedal is only like $35 used, or whatever, and grab one.
Yeah.
So that's like my version of that,
Yeah, I mean, the only pedal I have, I occasionally play through a distortion pedal. It's just a Big Muff. And then I have a chorus pedal that's like the clone of the chorus pedal that Peter Hook used in Joy Division. It's like the Electro Harmonics clone plus or something like that. Yeah. I forget the exact name, but I don't use one of the originals, because if you try to find one of those, they're like gigantic. They're like the size of a laptop, and then they're also like $2,000 or something. Maybe
I was gonna say.
So, and then you got to be able to fix them and try to find all the, when the different electronic parts go out, you got to be able to track down stuff that's either the same or close enough. Anyway, that stuff just drives me crazy. I don't have time in the day to do all the stuff I have to do with like family crap and all that. So
I respect anybody who has the desire to make something that they consider so perfect and near and dear to their heart or whatever, but like at the same time, like I had a friend from overseas once that was like trying to get me to like find a pedal for them like on eBay that was like, you know, one of these like you'll just never find this, you know, kind of thing. And
right.
I'm finding like, yeah, there's like 5 other later models of this exact pedal, and this person is like, no, but that first one. And I'm like, I do get it, I do, but like this is so much trouble to go through when like any time you record this or whatever, like some audio engineer is just gonna like stomp the hell out of like this aspect of it or like tweak the hell out of that aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
yeah,
no, I totally agree.
It's like, I don't know. You're never putting that pedal like absolutely raw the way you hear it into the mix, you know? And so it was just like, I was just like, I can't help you. Like, if I can't just get on there and find this like right away, like I can't help you. I don't have the time, you know, like you're saying, I don't have the time to do this for myself, like, let alone, you know, like, whatever. And I have no idea what I'm looking at in the first place, but yeah,
my only vanity thing is that Ampeg head, which I'm sure everybody that's in the band with me would like for me to get rid of it. Just because it's like 85 pounds.
Yeah, I was thinking that's what you meant.
Monster.
Was one of those beasts.
Yeah, it's a big 300 tube amp, and that thing sounds awesome. I love the way it sounds. I can't, you know, the place where we practice, there's also a Gallion Kruger like 800 RB or one of those, and I just like the way the Ampeg sounds way better than the Gallion Kruger.
I've definitely been in touring situations where the bass player had, you know, the Ampeg with the 8x10, and and it's funny how fast people disappear when it comes time for those two things to get carried up the stairs.
Oh god, yeah, it's insane.
It's just like bye.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Anything else you want to? I don't want to push you over. I can talk.
Oh no. I was gonna, you know, move on to sort of like talking about the record and everything in a bit more detail. It came out September 25th, and Belladonna Records. That's your label, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's something that I had done in the late or mid '90s. My friend Kurt and I put some stuff out before that. And he didn't want to, and that's a whole nother story, but he didn't really want to call it a label because it was more of a collaboration with us and whoever bands we were friends with. But then I started doing stuff of my own, and I called it Belladonna. And then I started putting stuff out like in like in the 2014 or 2015. I resurrected the name. Yeah,
I think, you know, it's only been a few years that I had become aware of y'all, as far as the label goes. What did you put out back in the day?
Well, the first record that I put out that was by myself, it was sort of Belladonna, but it wasn't given a Belladonna number or whatever, catalog number. There's a band called Don Martin 3.
Oh, shit.
12-inch by them.
Yeah. Wow.
And that I put that out. And those guys were always really funny. So they did the entire. I paid for it, but they did everything. Like they interacted with back then United Pressing, which was like the worst pressing plant to get anything done with. It was always going to sound like a United record, right?
It was like the only one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, it was like.
Yep, and so that was the first. I put out the U.S. version of the Palatka Asshole Parade split. The record label that put that out originally was Coalition Records. They're from the Netherlands. Let me think. I put out a I Hate Myself Strike Force Diablo split. It's a band called Excelsior from Pennsylvania. Insult to Injury was a band from South Carolina. And that was most of the stuff I put out before. I put out a comp that had like a It's a band called Remington.
Oh yeah.
Sleepy Time Trio. A band called Waltz that's from Gainesville, and Strike Force Diablo that was from Gainesville. And I put that actually out with this guy Nick, who used to play he sang for his band Anasarca. That was another '90s band.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little comp 7-inch. And that was that. And before that, I put out stuff with my friend Kurt, which was Asshole Parade stuff and Palatka stuff, and this band called Into Century Party. Oh yeah, I put an Into Century Party LP out on Belladonna.
Wild.
Sorry about that. I don't want to forget that. I like that band. That was one of my favorite. Those guys are so nice too. It was just we play with them in Palatka all the time. Yeah.
What brought you back into it? Like in the mid 2010s.
People were asking me. I always got people every once in a while asking me if I still had stuff. Or just for information about stuff, because it was, like for whatever reason, Don Martin 3, there was like a lot of mystery behind them, and for not really a lot of reason, but and so there were people, I think that people would still like that band a lot, and just had a lot of questions about them, because they don't, Colin and them were pretty private folks and weren't really into doing a whole lot of any kind of promotion or interviews or any of that sort of stuff. Or maybe they just didn't get asked because they weren't really that, personable when you'd meet them. They're like I said, pretty private, kind of did their own thing. When they'd play a show, they'd hang out, but they wouldn't, you weren't going to go out and, if you're drinking, you weren't going to have a beer with them or, go get food or whatever. They're probably going to go off on their own. Mm-hmm. And then we got, for whatever reason, I don't remember. I think it's because they actually paid for like plane tickets for folks. There was a Asshole Parade, for whatever reason, did a anniversary show. I guess it was their 20th anniversary or something of existing, and it was in 2015. And they actually asked Palatka if we would be willing to play, and they would fly out. Ryan, who at the time, maybe he was living in St. Augustine. I'm not sure if he was living in Huntsville, Alabama yet or not. But for whatever reason, we had kind of not ever wanted to play together. We were friends. All of us were friends. We just didn't want to play music anymore together. There wasn't really any interest in that. And then we decided that we would do it. Kurt was living in Nepal. He works for the World Food Organization, I think. One of those 3-letter State Department type food organization.
Yeah.
And so we didn't think he was going to be able to make it, just because it was just that was just just a crazy trip for him to take for a night, and try to practice and things like that. And during that, my friend Travis Fristo, he played in a band he sang for a band called Moonraker, a bunch of other bands after that. I don't know if you're familiar with that band, but he ended up committing suicide. And so that kind of spurred me to put out a band that he was in called Die Hoffnung, because they had recorded something, and Travis was going to put it out on his label, Obscurus Press, and it just never came out. and then he got married and had a child, and kind of, I wouldn't say disappeared. He just wasn't doing music or record stuff or anything like that. And then after, we were actually at practice for that reunion, because my friend, the guitar player Mike Taylor, was still really close to Travis as far as communicating with him at least once a week or whatever. And when he found out that Travis had committed suicide, it was pretty emotional time for all of us, because he was such a good friend. It was such a surprise, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of got me thinking about the record, and I forced the other band members, this guy Jim Marburger and John, to sort of let me have the wave files just so I could hear it, and then I eventually talked them into releasing it. And that got me doing it again, because it's such a personal sort of a thing for me to do that. And this sounds corny, but like, hear his voice and read stuff that he'd written. And he was a very good guy. Everybody really liked Travis. He was especially when we were more in contact, he was a good friend. And so got spurned on by that. And then most of my friends that live in Gainesville were still in active bands, so it was pretty easy to start doing stuff again.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how excited my wife is about it, because
I understand.
Some records you sell a lot of, and some records they sit in the closet forever. So
yeah, I have a whole room in the basement. That's I got a whole room of
so
them.
you get it.
I do, for sure.
Usually what happens is a band will break up, right? And then you're like, oh man.
Yeah. That's the worst one. You're like, well, I guess these are going out free with every order.
Yeah.
Something like that. What are you gonna do? But
I'm in that same spot.
Yeah.
So I got into it, and then my friend Shane, who was the drummer in Radon, him and I were roommates at one point too for a long time, and we were just like, hey, let's start playing. And it was actually this John from Asshole Parade, the drummer from Asshole Parade, was wanting to do a band, and he had kind of called Shane and I to see if we would play. And then Shane and I got a warehouse and started practicing, thinking John would join up. And then John kind of, by the time he got to the point where he was ready to play with us, we realized what kind of music he wanted to play. And then we realized we weren't really, at least I wasn't that interested in playing that kind of music. And then Shane decided that we would just keep going with what we were doing. And then John ended up, now he's his band that he kind of started with us, the idea with, but didn't work out. It's called Wired Up. And strangely enough, they're kind of an oi, Thin Lizzy rock band, which I like a lot. I wasn't really interested in playing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's John's new band from Asshole Parade, and he plays guitar in that band. But it started out, we were supposed to be Shane, John, and I playing in a band, but it didn't work out. But it got us spurred on to do something.
Yeah. And then, like, this is... Dead Sea Lords has been going for about how long?
Well, I mean, strangely, it started right before COVID in 2000.
Okay.
And Shane and I came up with, it's bass and drums that we came up with, 2 or 3 songs, and we were, several times got someone we thought would play guitar, and then COVID happened and just everything kind of fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then, life changed. I had a child as a 50-year-old or a 48-year-old, 49-year-old. And then we both kind of got derailed for a few years and didn't do anything about it. And then in 2023, we started playing again. And then we promptly got kicked out of our warehouse because of it was like a Gainesville band thing. So there was like this big thing in the newspaper about all the warehouse scene in Gainesville. And then Right after that article came out, there was an eviction notice for every band. There was probably like 20 bands in these warehouses.
Damn.
Everybody got kicked out of their practice space, so everybody had to figure out what they were going to do. And then, we were also paying nothing for our practice space. It was like $200 a month for a big cargo bay. Like it was a huge space, like 15 by 30 mini store or storage space.
Oh, wow.
Although it was easily the worst space of all the spaces people were practicing in that warehouse. It was just electricity was screwed up. It was so hot. It was just annoying. And then Shane found like right when we were about to give up, trying to figure out what we were going to do as far as where to practice. They found this guy who was closing up a professional recording studio. And he didn't really want to do it, but he was just aging out. He just was, he knew he was going to not do it at all anymore. He was going to retire. So he was trying to sell everything off and close it up. It was really nice. And he had sold a lot of the stuff that it was there, a lot of the sound baffling panels and stuff like that, which are hideously expensive. I never realized how expensive that stuff was.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And he had kind of sold it to his friends because they were just being nice. Everybody loved this guy. And then when he found out that there was interest in it, Shane got one of his friends who was moving to Gainesville, this guy, Andre, who plays for a bunch of bands now, but he played for like, do you ever remember that pop punk band from like the 90s called Quit?
Oh, no, I don't.
From Miami?
No.
He was in, and they were pretty popular because I remember, going, when I was in high school, going to the Specs or whatever the music store was back then that you go to in the mall. And there was a Quick tape, and I was like, oh man, yeah, whatever I could find in those places we'd buy. So Andre actually did sound, is a professional sound engineer. So they took over this recording studio. So we went from having like the worst, nastiest rat infested hot box of a practice space that you could only practice in the summer for like 20, 30 minutes before you had to get out. Because you couldn't have the bay door open when you practice, when you were loud. And you just couldn't. I mean, after 30 minutes, it'd probably be like 110 degrees in there. You just had to get out, open the bay up, and let the fan run. And to being like, they got a website. It's a rehearsal space now. They do a 2-hour block for $50. And to be honest, we would practice maybe once a week usually, but maybe twice a week, but mostly once a week. And we were paying like $250 for that piece of crap space. So it just makes sense. And they have all the amps are there. You don't have to really do anything. You just show up, play, and then leave. And it's air conditioned, which is amazing. It's actually really nice.
Yeah, the glow up is real on that for sure.
Yeah. No, and so I'm really, that worked out really well. Anyway, that's how we started playing, and then we asked my friend Danny if he wanted to play, and then we got a guitar player, and then Shane asked Brian, who he was in a band with before, and Brian was, now that we had songs that we could actually show people and give them recordings of, Brian was like super excited. So that's the band. And then we recruited the singer. We had a couple singers come out, and it just didn't work out. More because they didn't really want to sing. They just wanted to hang out, I think. I wasn't sure what was going on. And then Eric, actually put effort into it, and we were really happy with it, so it worked out.
Yeah.
Singers are hard. I mean, I don't sing, and none of us sing, or yell, or whatever you want to call it. A front person. So we had to find somebody, and it worked out really well.
I love the really breathy nature of the vocals on the album. I think it gels really well with everything that y'all have going on, like musically, for sure. But yeah,
I appreciate it.
the album just came out September 25th. It's 9 songs. People can grab a 12-inch from Belladonna, which, due to record label pressing plant stuff, will be shipping like in December, right? December, January.
Yeah, I got my fingers crossed in December. I'm not.
Yeah.
The last 2 things I've done, and I go through this label, are a pressing plant in Kentucky called Palomino,
Oh yeah.
which have been great. I've everything has been phenomenal. They did the Palatka. We're putting out a Palatka double 12-inch also. That's actually going to come out probably a little bit sooner than the Dead Sea Lords. It was difficult compiling everything and getting everything done. It was just 62 songs, and it's just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Just the logistics of it are just different. Like, I just found out we were going to put it on, I guess I use CD Baby. Probably not the best one to use, but that's what I use for the streaming stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't let you do more than 50 songs per release. So I got to be 2 releases, kind of janky, but
Palatka
anyway.
discography part 1, part 2.
Exactly. That's what we call it. Anyway,
Yeah.
and so that's coming out too. So but he, Palomino was great, and I haven't used. I think that a lot of people use GZ or whatever.
The one in Czech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think all that stuff sounds great. I just haven't tried it. I like the color options they give doing that direct metal. I don't know if the actual direct metal allows them to do the color options easier, but they look great.
I have no idea. Every time that we do a record where there's a European label involved, like, they'll usually want to do it, and I know it ends up going through there because that's how they end up getting it so cheap. The last one I did was I tried out a new pressing plant in Philly, and because a friend was working there, and then I'm not sure what happened. Like, he was gonna press our record, like he was physically gonna do it himself, and then like I think he like went on tour or something when our record was about to be pressed, so it was like a timing thing. But oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of that pressing plant right now. I keep wanting to say the wrong thing, because we were talking about Gainesville and all this, and we were talking about records. I just keep thinking School Kids records. That's where I bought all these records back in Gainesville.
Yeah, I remember that place was great.
But it's the pressing plant is like some combination of words like that, which is like doesn't necessarily sound like a pressing plant, and that's why I'm like, I don't know, I'm just getting like brain confusion right now. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of
it's not called Waxy Poodle, is it?
No, it's like
okay.
It's oh my gosh, like my like my friend Peter, if he happens to listen to this, he's gonna text me the minute he hears this part and be like, it was this. But yeah, there's so many plants now these days, and I think that's really what's going on is there's a lot of this direct to metals now, because I know that the lacquers and stuff is the big hold up for a lot of this, and I think that perhaps the direct to metal is the way around that, but I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, it's like,
I'm not averse to it. I initially heard, like, I had a couple that were direct metal earlier on that were kind of, and maybe I just convinced myself that they were this way, but they were kind of a tinny, more of a tinny sound to them. The bass wasn't as thick on vinyl. And then, I've heard others that sounded great. And then one of the guy that really helped us out with the Palatka stuff, this guy from Nottingham, England, this guy Joe Caithness.
Oh yeah. From the
He-
band Plaids and stuff.
Yeah. He reached
Joe.
out to me early on and told me if I needed help, that he was a fan and that he would just, because we were just like, oh my God, there's like 8 DATs and a bunch of other formats. And each one of them had like, just a mess of different stuff on it. Cause we put a bunch of stuff on comps. So there was a lot of like the original recording where you'd record all the songs through, and then all these little one-off things that were on there that got put on smaller DATs, like
the
I don't know if
ADAT.
you remember back then.
Yeah. The ADAT. They're
Where
like smaller than a cassette, but they're like thicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have their smaller links. A lot of them have like 30-minute or something like that. I don't know, the small, maybe it was a 15-minute ADAT. And those are almost throwaways, like I don't think we ever got those back. Like we'd set them off and they would just disappear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was really good about that. But that he says that, that he was telling me that when you do the pre-mastering, that you can make it sound specific, pre-mastering specific for direct metal, that kind of gives it more of that warm sound and thicker bass.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you, I might be just talking about that because I like I said, you listen to some people, especially purists, they'll just rant about direct metal, how bad it is. And then, most of the stuff I've bought in the past, 2 years has pretty much probably all been direct metal.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like I know that a big thing is that there's only so many. I think what I remembered reading is there's like literally like 2 places in the entire world that can make like these lacquers for making the lacquers.
Oh yeah.
So that's like, at least it was at the time of me reading this thing, that was like
and one of them
the
burnt
big,
down, right?
Yeah. And so like you have like these plants that are like, they're trying to order just like tens of thousands of these at a time, and they're like actually putting like almost like a hold. They're like, we can give you this many right now. This is like literally all we can do. And they're like selling these lacquers like in just months or years in advance, like who knows. And so there's been that need for the direct metal like process to catch up or try to equivalate itself to the sound quality, whatever issues it may have previously had. And it sounds like people are cracking it, which is good. But
yeah, no, I like I said, I mean, I right now I like Palomino because the prices are good, and so far everything that they've done for us, it sounded great. In the Palatka record, I was actually surprised because I was not expecting it to be. I don't know what I was expecting. I just wasn't really that. I was like hoping that it would sound great, but I wasn't, because we didn't go find some rock star lacquer cutting person to do it, or whatever. I know some people, you find specific people to get it to where it's going to sound good.
Mm-hmm.
I only have one person that I encountered that definitely thought of himself as being God's gift to mastering, but I avoid that person now. I don't think he would talk to me anyway because I don't know. I'm sure if you've ever encountered this person, you can guess what I'm talking about. But
I would.
His first name starts with a D and his last name starts with an E.
Well, that's not who I was thinking of. But
all right.
But yeah, it's funny how like there's, I don't know, I think there's such a, especially in the kind of stuff that we do, there's such a range in like recording quality and et cetera, but then like you put something on a vinyl and all of a sudden everyone's an expert, it's like,
yeah.
like if somebody tries to tell me like, something about like the way the KMB Communique 7-inch is like mastered poorly for vinyl, et cetera, et cetera. Like that is absolutely my favorite Screamo 7-inch of all time. So like take what I'm about to say next, like with a grain of salt, but it's like not a good recording, you know?
Sure.
It's the perfect recording for that 7-inch in my opinion. But like, you know what I mean? As far as like today's standards,
100%.
like with the way the guitar sounds, with the way the vocal sounds, like was it captured well at all? Probably we would all say no. But like to me, the record is better for it just by coincidence, And like it's just weird sometimes when when you have just people talking out of school about like the mastering on this or on that, and you're like, that for all I know that was recorded on a 4-track. Like what are you talking about? Like but
No,
yeah.
I totally agree with you, and you're also right that a lot of times it's just luck.
Yeah.
But it ended up being perfect, and it's like, all right, well they got lucky. I think I was talking to somebody about the Honeywell LP, and about how, and this is a person talking about them, not talking about what they said. This is his opinion, but he was a friend of theirs back then, and he watched the band evolve from being a high school band, and I don't know how much longer they played. They may have just been in high school when they were in that band, but how he knew they all wanted to be a certain type of band, but for various reasons, Honeywell is what came out of it. And his opinion was that a lot of it was where they were at with their skill level and sort of their equipment and everything, and then what they were doing and sort of luck. And that's what came out.
Yeah. I mean,
and then that record, with a few other records, kind of defined a lot of stuff that came after that.
Yeah, it really is sort of like a I don't know, not like a testament or anything to like, but it's just that there's something about this like particular, mid 90s to early 2000s, like very early 2000s, where it's just like there's so many instances of where it's like the band will be like, we hate this recording, or whatever. And I'm specifically like, if that recording didn't sound like that, like it wouldn't stand out from a lot of things that were similar. And so it's this, 100%. It's this weird like game of chance. And the reason why people are still talking about X record today or whatever is because of all those circumstances that created and shaped it the way it is. And I don't know, it's wild. Like when we live in an age where we can all record ourselves, to a degree, like fairly clearly, even on a phone or something, right?
100%. It's professional recording almost.
Yeah, and you have people that are specifically trying to like backwards engineer these like lo-fi, and do what we were doing on Tascams in 1994. It's just, it's wild, but I
don't know what that microphone. It's like a Shure. There's some Shure older like shitty microphone that they'd use for like PA systems, like in an office or in an elementary school or whatever.
Like the 50, like one of the Elvis looking ones?
Yeah, kind of. It's something you would have like a little pedestal that would sit on a desk.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Those are sought after now because they sound like you're saying. It sounds kind of shitty. It sounds compressed and distorted. And if you yell into it and if you turn it way up, it just completely blows out.
Yeah.
And it sounds awesome. And for certain kinds of music, and it's just one of those things that's funny. There's probably a box somewhere, if it still exists, it's just like basically sitting in the back of a warehouse. It's full of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they just kind of threw them out.
Yeah, hopefully they're not all washing up onto shore like the Garfield phones or whatever. But yeah, anyway, the record's out there and people can order it, and by the time this airs and stuff, they'll hardly have to wait any time at all, and they should grab that Palatka discography as well. Just why not load up the cart?
That's going to be a stretch for me because it's like the first. I've always tried to keep record prices down as much as I could, and it's like, man, everything's so expensive. It's like going to be, I don't know. I feel terrible. It's like a $32 record.
Yeah. Well,
for a double LP gatefold.
Like I saw that, I think that the Dead Sea Lords record was 18 on the Bandcamp, and I was like, the last LP that I put out, like, it ended up costing us like $14, and I was like, God, like this is, yeah, and that's not like. That's like, that costs us $14. So then by the time you put it on Bandcamp for whatever amount, and PayPal takes 10% and Bandcamp takes 15%, and like, and theoretically you'll end up paying taxes on this possibly as well. And it's just like, you're like, how am I going to keep doing this? But
the Bandcamp thing is the part I have a label website that's, I need to do a better job with, but I need to list those things on the label website. And the only fee that you'd pay was like PayPal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you, man. The Bandcamp, all those sites, and I understand they're doing it for, like that's their business, right? So
yeah.
But they've escalated everything, and then they also put that cut on shipping. Again, I understand why, because some people were charging ridiculous amounts for shipping.
Well, shipping is ridiculous now, but
yeah, it is. But you're charging. They were charging before prices went up. They were charging like $10 for an LP.
Yeah.
For shipping.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, man, that doesn't cost you that much.
Yeah, it's wild too, because like it's like you sell a record overseas and it's like literally $30 to send it, and PayPal gets a percent of that. Like you're just like, what the hell is happening here? But
doesn't PayPal and Bandcamp? I think Bandcamp.
Yeah, I think they do too. I think they just take a flat like out of the total, and it's just like, so you lost 25% of this $30 shipping fee, which is literally, it's costing you because like an LP overseas now is $28.50, the last that I knew, and then your box costs 75 cents. So you're literally paying $30. It's not.
Yeah, and I agree with you 1,000,000%, because I remember last time I did it, and it ended up being, like you said, 25% of they took away, and so you ended up like getting hosed $10 or like $8.
Yeah, it's rough.
You just pay out of pocket, and you do that all the time. It's just like, and you don't want to charge $38 for shipping, but we're gonna do for the Palatka record. Robert with Adagio.
Oh yeah.
And he's going to sell the European. Like I'm going to send him 40 records.
Awesome.
Because he has a shipping deal where he can, I think he does like what they call the shipping aggregator.
Okay.
With another label, where it's I just send it to the aggregator, like somewhere in Baltimore.
Right.
And I can send it media mail, and then it gets to him. So it's almost like me sending it to a distributor in the U.S. So it's a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he's going to sell them in Europe.
Yeah, he'll have them in the store too. That's a cool store.
Yeah, it is a cool store. He's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. But yeah, man, Dead Sea Lords. Yeah, we're super stoked. And
do you have
trying to come up with new songs?
Shows coming up that people will be able to grab the album at, like after the New Year or around that? Or?
We don't have anything planned after New Year yet. We have a couple shows in December.
Where are those going to be at?
They're both at this place called Boca Fiesta in Gainesville. It's called The Backyard. It's actually Walter from Against Me, the old drummer, who no longer is in Against Me. Mm-hmm. He owns a restaurant called Boca Fiesta, which strangely enough was a venue called the Hardback.
Oh my goodness.
Back in the day, now it's a Mexican restaurant. And
It's right there, huh?
Yeah, so he owns like half, and then there's like a courtyard in the back, which is a real cool spot, which is a shared space with this other like bar pool hall called Palomino, which is owned by this guy Jeff, who was in Hollapa. I don't know if you remember that like indie band.
I don't remember them.
He's been in a bunch of punk bands too, so it's all people that are friends and people we know. But it's a cool space. But yeah, we're playing with Walter's bands called Chimes.
What's the dates on those shows?
Warren. I'm sorry, Warren, not Walter. Why was I saying Walter? Warren from Against Me. My bad.
What's the dates on those shows?
December 8th and the 21st. For whatever reason, they're both at the same venue. So
Awesome. Do you think there's any chance you'll have the LP, or is it like you're just gritting your teeth, like maybe?
I mean, there's a chance, but
Yeah.
it's going to be in the holidays. It's not.
Oh, right. Yeah. Somebody's there. Yeah, they're probably gonna take off a couple weeks, and so it'll be hard.
I'm hoping it's like the first week of January, but I'm also wouldn't be surprised if it was like the end of January, unfortunately.
And that was my conversation with Jason Teisinger. Thank you so much, Jason, for taking the time to chat with me. Thanks to all of y'all for listening as well. Make sure you stay tuned to middlemanrecords.bandcamp.com on December 6th for the premiere of Kill Code. Until next time, take care and do good things.